Hello, everybody. Here I am. Welcome to the third episode of the Meet with Big Pauly. Over here on the right is Tom Vogel of Wrestling's Finest. And before we get started, I'm going to show you all something real quick that I just figured out to start. And that is I have a merch store now. And Streamlabs gives you the opportunity to start up a merch store without putting down any money. So it's another reason why you should be using for your streaming Streamlabs OBS. And I'll just mention this real quick. And I'm not Jerry Lewis here. I'm not gonna beg or do anything like that. The URL address, if you want to check this out for yourself, is streamlabs.com. Big Pauly's World of Sports Sims /merch. There's a slash between streamlabs.com and Big Pauly's World of Sports Sims, and then there's another slash between that and merch. I have a link. If you're seeing this on YouTube, I have a link in the area that describes our chat for tonight. And let me just bring Tom back up here. Here he is, Tom Vogel, Wrestling's Finest. Tom, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Pauly. Glad to be here.
And let me just turn my comments section on because I usually have somebody chatting in by now. Oh, that's just a demo, folks. Don't you worry about that. Tom, I guess a good place to start. We were on with Al Red Sox fan about month and a half ago. I know you were talking about bringing AEW and ROH wrestlers into the game. Any thoughts on that? Any updates?
Yeah, we're progressing very nicely. In fact, Justin and Shannon have been a great help with it. And Justin's really excited because I said, go ahead and rate Miro, the best man Miro. And we're probably going to hold on to him just for a little bit, just to make sure the next month or so. But we now have, and he's finishing up one more wrestler. So we'll have 32 in the set. And we have 12 tag teams. And what we have to do within the game is we're going to create, or we've created it, we're going to have an AEW specific chart that will reflect what goes on, like when you have outside ring action. And once we get that put in there, we'll have a couple final rounds of play testing and it will be good to go. And then ROH, gentleman Michael, who's been rating for probably 10, 12 years now, probably rates better than I do. I mean, he researches and he's a phenomenal rater. He has rated 26 ROH wrestlers. And I think he might add a few more like classic ROH guys before they hit like the WWE. So, and then we're also within the game, we're also going to create an ROH specific chart that will help capture the ROH. So,
yeah, I would think you would need one because the work rate of those ROH guys in AEW is probably way beyond, I would say, conventional wrestling of the last 100 years or so.
Yeah, it's a lot has to do with, when they go outside the ring. For example, AEW, I don't even know why the referee counts when they go outside the ring, because they don't have count outs. They don't have double count outs. Guys run in, interfere. You don't have DQs through that. So we had to challenge the Wrestling's Finest game engine. Can we capture that? And I believe we can. And the ROH, they're not quite as you'll have an occasional count out, double count out. And so we want to capture that as close as we can. So AEW is way farther along right now than ROH, but eventually they'll both be released, and kind of excited to see them get out there.
We say hello to Sports Time Machine. Yeah, Big Pauly with merch. Yeah, I just stumbled on that by accident within the last day or two. I had a question from somebody that contacted my Big Pauly's World of Sims Facebook group. That's relatively new. I started that in last couple of weeks. And I'm sure the answer to this is yes. It depends on how far back you want to go. Our current and past IWGP, NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, wrestlers as a part of Wrestling Finest. And I think almost to a man the answer to that is yes.
That is correct. And we have two people, again, we have two Michaels that actually have rated probably 95% of them. And if I understand correctly, though, I think they want to work on some current guys. But there's a very, very strong representation for those wrestlers. And on top of that, we also have Japanese style matches. We have a lightweight and then a heavyweight. When I say those style matches, it means how the matches are timed and also what occurs outside the ring. When the action goes out to the floor, certain things are different. There's more maybe dives out of the ring. Some of them don't have, say, like ring railing, so you don't want to have those type results in there. So we try to customize some of the best we can, the outside styles, and also how often you may have a count out or a double count out. So.
Yeah. Let me say hello to Steeler fan. Hello, Pauly, Tommy, and Mike. We were having a discussion before we hit the air at 9:00 tonight about how wrestlers are rated, and you had some very interesting comments about that. Care to share them?
Sure. I try to, as I was telling Pauly, when someone inquires about the game, one of the questions I get is, can you rate your own wrestlers? And the answer to that is you can, but it's very, very difficult for two reasons. One, you truly have to understand the game engine to know how to rate them. And second of all, you kind of have to know how to enter them, I guess is the best way to put it. And it can be done, but the number one thing is if you don't know how the game actually works, you're going to have a real hard time making accurate ratings. The good thing is in the game, if you go to the help file, there's I guess you call it the computer instructions or rules, but we also, I think, starts on page 51 for those who might have the game who are on here. We actually have the old tabletop rules in there. And if you follow those and you want to spend some time, you can actually get a feel for how a match actually works. It walks you through each step and you'll say, oh, that's how that works. And once you get that down, it makes it a little easier to rate wrestlers. Now, for the AEW guys, what was nice was I set up a template for Justin and Shannon, and Justin kind of ran with it. And I said, if you can fill in these items, and I had to give them a lot of guidance and direction, I can fill in the rest. And after Justin rated about 8 or 9 guys, he got the hang of it without any problem. And then he would send them to me, and then I'd have several questions. Like, for example, here's I think a pretty good example. He just rated Miro a few days ago, and I input him into the game. And the real question I had was his finish and hold is a camel clutch called Game Over. And I asked him, I said, is this the best specialty move in AEW? And his answer was, yes, it was. So that helped me now know what to give it for ratings. And then I went and watched several videos of them, and it, kind of cleared some other things up. But the rating process is very challenging, time consuming, and then you got to play test like crazy. So, but it's fun. So.
Yeah, I was just showing a mock-up. Well, not the mock-up. This is me pulling up Wrestling's Finest on my other monitor, and you could just see it here. When you were on with Al Red Sox Fan, we were trying to show people how the game worked. Did you want to do a little run-through here?
Sure. If you want to, how everything starts is if you go up to that far left corner that you set. You start like new singles match, and then what happens is you get the wrestler selection, and where you see Pauly has it highlighted, those are all the wrestler sets that come with the game. But then there's also a featured our computer guy that I'll talk about a little bit more later, Gary. he created a feature where you can create your own wrestler set. So like I run a Georgia territory replay. So basically what I can do is I can select all the wrestlers I want to be in my Georgia. I create it, and then that would show up as one of the files. So at this screen, you would pick your 2 wrestlers, and then in the middle at the top, where it says classic match style, you determine what kind of match you want to have. Now, see Pauly here, he's going through the different sets, picking what 2 wrestlers he wants. And then all the various matches are listed, and you select the match you want. And each one is different. A couple we don't have and we can't, and honestly, the game engine just isn't designed for it because, game was designed so long ago that you cannot do like 3-way or 4-way matches. And part of I'm not even sure if we could, but I'll be honest, I do not like those type matches because I feel the champion should get pinned. And if Pauly, myself, and Al are in a match and Pauly's the champion, and if Al pins me, he's now the new champion, even though Pauly didn't even get pinned. So I'm not a fan of him to start with. But anyway, after you select your match, and probably the most of the time you're going to select the classic style. And the reason we call it classic is this game was designed, I want to say it was started in 1981, and it was designed on the old territory days. And so we just went with the classic name. But once you select your wrestlers and match, you then underneath the match type, if you want to make it a title match or a world title match, you can make that selection. And then on the bottom below the wrestler selection, you can select a manager. And Pauly, would be nice here if you could select. Is that Samoa Joe?
That is Ake Bono on the right.
Okay, just any wrestler you want. If you could click just view this, it doesn't matter who you put up there, but if you could click view card.
Yes.
And see what we have here is there's 5 tabs. And if you have the game, each screen will tell you something like we have the control, the legal hammering, the illegal hammering, and then specialty. And when people first get the game, they say, whoa, there's a lot of stuff here. I see why it's hard to rate wrestlers. But every wrestler is rated from 3 to 5 specialty holds, which are typically, holds or moves they attempt that typically lead to a pin or submission. So people can look at the wrestler card before they even officially select them. And then once you select your wrestlers, you can select a manager for either one or both. And same thing, once you scroll over or you select a manager, you can look at their card to see what their ratings kind of look like. And the thing that's a little misleading, you see all those results there. I think there's 13 of them. Every one of those results, the wording there isn't exactly what occurs because for every one of those results, we have a text file. So if a manager gets in cheap shots, we go to a text file and there's probably 15 to 20 different things that will explain how the manager got cheap shots in. So if you take every one of those results by about 15 different text files, you can see there's going to be a lot of different results. But once you choose a manager or don't choose a manager, I think there's 97 in the game now. You then can have the computer control one or both wrestlers. And when you select the computer, it will control the wrestler based on, is he a heel or face? You can also change it to like what we call an oddball, a tweener, or a champion. And what happens when you make that selection, the computer will make in-match decisions based on, is the wrestler basically a good guy or a bad guy? For example, a good guy's not going to try as many illegal pins. He's not going to call for outside help, where the heel is going to do the opposite and all that. So you can either control one, both, or let the computer control them both. And if you look on the far left where it says pre-match, you can select how often you want a possible pre-match attack to occur. And I know everybody, a pre-match. Well, everything in wrestling's finest, when you make a decision, there's always a good and a bad.
Yes.
So your pre-match could really backfire. It could go exceptionally well, or it could turn into a wild brawl for both guys. So, and it's based on both wrestlers' ratings. So it's not just the luck of the draw, what happens. But when we do like group projects, I usually tell everybody to set it to never, because I'm trying to get ratings data and I don't really want pre-matches to occur. But when people, like when Pauly runs his own wrestling world, he can set it for whatever he wants. But then right in the middle, you'll see set time limit. And then you get to set how long you want your match to be. And then right above it, above that time button is if you see those three, you can do a 2 out of 3. You can do a scientific match, and you make all your selections here. And then if one of your wrestlers is a champion, you designate him as the champion because his pin rating will actually slightly go down. Now, if you go back up to the top, Pauly, that classic match,
yes.
One of the things we added not too long ago, I think version 2, I think you're just about there, defend the title, is if your champion's a heel and you select defend the title, it uses a different outside ring chart where you'll get to see the heel will do certain things a champion would do, like roll out of the ring more. He knows the referee's probably not going to disqualify him because he doesn't want to take the opportunity for the challenger to win the title. So he'll take liberties, and it only works for the heel, but it adds, and there's a couple where the heel will actually grab the championship belt and blast his opponent while the referee is down. Or there's one result on the chart where the heel simply has had enough. He rolls out of the ring, grabs his championship belt, and heads back to the dressing room. So once you're done here and all your selections are made, you click OK, and then it takes you back to the main game screen. And here he would select the heel there if he wants to make him defending the title. Then he clicks accept. And the next big thing you do is if you want to do trade hold recommendations, the computer will give you suggestions on what holds you may want to trade out of depending on who your opponent is. And say, for example, you're wrestling King Kong Bundy. He's going to have incredible counters for like body slams and suplexes. And to me, when you play wrestling's finest, you're pretending and believing that the wrestlers are, trying to win, that they study their opponents, and then they make, like a football coach makes a game plan. So you're probably not going to want to try to body slam or suplex King Kong Bundy because his counters are so high. So you're probably going to trade it to like an arm hold or maybe a speed move and use holds that would wear King Kong Bundy down because his stamina is so low. So once you make your changes, the game, if you want to do what the game says, all you have to do is click one button and the changes are made. Gary put that cool feature in. You just click OK. And then anytime one of those moves comes up that you traded from, it will say on your screen, it says traded hold. And hi, Al. Hope you're doing well. I got to talk.
Hello,
Al. Got to get some information from my brother. He loves you, Al. So anyway, so once you click OK or accept, now you get back to the match and a couple of things will come up that are kind of cool. So if Pauly clicks action, you'll see it gives you a matchup analysis. And it tells you each wrestler's point score, which is just a rough guide. And then a prediction is made for the match who the computer thinks might win. And then once you do that and you hit if you get out of that, Pauly, and hit action again, or this is a match summary. It tells you all the match settings, all the choices you made at that previous screen. And then once you're done here, I believe the match will actually start. And one thing we added in version 3, if you look to the right of the text boxes, it's a tale of the match, like how many times each wrestler's been in control, how many counters, how many auto control losses, which are not good, how many pin attempts, how many times they tried a specialty move, and then how many times they were successful. Below that's a pretty cool feature is it will give you the wrestlers at least last 5. I don't know if it's last 5 or 10. Can't remember because we changed it a couple of times. Their last 5 or 10 match results. So if Pauly had selected a wrestler he's used a lot, it would tell you how he's done in his last several matches. Just kind of a, hey, this guy's like 4-1 in his last 5 matches. But now he's ready to go. It's defend the title. It's a 20-minute match. Champions Brian Pillman with Percival Friend, and he's taking on Don Morocco with Percy Pringle. So once he clicks action, the match is starting. And right away, he gets a choice there. Don Morocco has the option of either using his manager or going outside the ring. So he's off to the races. I didn't notice if Pauly chose the computer to control or if he's going to control them. But, that's basically how the match works. Now,
I did not, by the way.
Okay, now the one thing, can you click no, Pauly?
Yes.
Okay, now, and click it again.
All right.
Okay, the only thing Pauly and I do a little bit different is my eyes wander too much. So what I do is I go up to the options or view, and I make it single display. Pauly likes to have everything shown, which a lot of people do. I'm more of a, I like to just have the last event show up. So, but that's just a personal preference, and you can do that however you want. But so the match is off to the races now, and sorry, I got to clear something off there, and it will give you a blow by blow description, and we have probably, I want to say, there's got to be around 5,000 text files in the game now. So we try to, for everything that occurs, we try to have, different results come up. So if a guy goes outside the ring and he hits his opponent with, or it's 15 off, we try to have about 15 to 20 different ways that can occur. And so I believe there's like 700 and some files in the game, and there's probably a minimum of 5 and up to 20 for each of those files. So there's probably over 7,000 text files in the game that pretty much covers everything, from cuts to outside ring action to illegal pins, you name it. So, but now you're off and running the match. There's an option to use, I'm not sure if Pauly uses them, but there's an option to use strategy cards. Each wrestler is assigned so many. And either the computer plays them based on how it's programmed. And if you have the game and you use the computer, basically you're playing against me, because Gary programmed the computer based on decisions how I make it when I play the game. So if I let the computer control each wrestler and I just sit back, it's basically I'm watching myself how I would play it for both guys. Now, Pauly might have different, like Tom. I don't like the way, I think Tom should use his strategy cards earlier or maybe later. So if that's the case, then Pauly would control one or both wrestlers, and then he could make the decisions however he wanted to do.
I just pulled up Pillman's.
So so what happens there is after a successful hold, he can then choose one of his however many specialty moves he has from 3 to 5. He probably has 4, maybe 5. He gets to choose which one he's going to apply. But here's the kicker. You don't want to use these cards too early, because your opponent's let's just say he's too fresh in the match. You only want to use these typically when your opponent's stamina level gets hit a couple times.
All right, here's another one.
This stops a DQ from occurring. It helps us eliminate some of the early DQs. So he's got another. This is here. He gets another. He's got 2 very good cards there, meaning he can pick what move he wants to try from his specialty moves. It might be countered, but if he lands it, it gives him a better opportunity to pin his opponent, especially if his opponent's really, really tired.
And if it doesn't work out, he's still got a specialty in his pocket.
Exactly. And so you got to decide, if you're controlling him, when do you, sometimes you just go gut feeling. Like, I think he's ready, and he's got another stop DQ card, which is good, except you're a champion. They're not quite as valuable, but if you're a challenger, they're great to have because they prevent you from getting disqualified. Now, the funny thing with this, I don't know if Pauly knows this, is, this card here, any strategy card your opponent plays, you can counter it. So if you're letting the computer control one wrestler and you decide you want to go for a specialty move, the computer analyzes the situation of the match, and they might say, sorry, Tom, Roddy Piper's not going to get to do that move or that specialty or that strategy card. We're going to counter it. And so then I don't get to use it. So that's a very important card. But I was going to tell you, Paul, I don't know if you know this, but at the forum, my brother's Hermdog too.
Mm-hmm.
He hates the strategy cards. He calls them luck cards. And he's right, because each guy gets anywhere between 4 and I think 7, but it's random which ones you get. And I like that because it can give an underdog a stronger chance, or it can give a great wrestler, could turn out maybe it's not his night. And I think there's 10 or 11 different strategy cards. So, and it really, you'll go to bed at night, and people have laughed at me when I've told them, but they will email me or text me. And I got a call one night at 11 o'clock. Somebody said, Tom, you're right. I just had a match. I can't sleep, and I'm kicking myself because I was saving my specific specialty hold card till I could do 2 more moves. And before I could get those 2 moves, the guy hit his own specialty move and pinned me. So so it's like you bring the wrong reliever in a baseball game. He was just kicking himself because he made the wrong decision. So that will happen. And as Pauly will know, when certain things happen in the game, it will tell you what happened, but it will be up to you to
interpret it.
Blanks. So like say my favorite wrestler is Roddy Piper. So if he's fighting Tommy Rich, and Rich goes for the Thez press, and he's going to have Piper get pinned, and I play an outside help strategy card, it says ally who has been pacing ringside quickly hits the ring and throws Tommy Rich out of the ring. He follows him out, and after several chair shots, Roddy Piper joins in the attack. Tommy Rich is carted off, blah, blah, blah. Roddy Piper loses by disqualification. I have to decide now who that wrestler was, that ally. The game's not going to tell you, so I can look at my roster, or I can say, who did I kind of want to bring into Georgia? And now Tommy Rich, instead of going after Piper, I can switch that feud, and let's say it was Don Morocco who attacked him. Tommy Rich can come out and say, Don Morocco, I'm all fired up. You came out, you attacked me, stuck your nose in my business, and I ain't going to stand for that, because you're going to see why I'm wildfire. Now you got the Don Morocco, Tommy Rich feud, and Piper can move on to something else. So that's a case where you don't have to have your feud have an ending. You can save that for a couple months down the line. But so I guess the long point I'm trying to make is not everything tells you what happened in the game. It will tell you what happened, but then you fill in the blanks. And sometimes you do not like something that happened during the match because you were hoping you wanted to go a different direction. And a lot of the gamers will say the game has a mind of its own, and it's going to take you down paths you never thought it would, some that you don't want it to go. But a lot of times you're mad, you're frustrated, but when you figure out how to use it, you're thrilled because you go, I got a great idea. And the next thing you know, you're just, oh man, this is great. Now I can go this direction. So, and while we're on, I know I'm rambling.
Sure.
Delphi's forum. We have a forum at Delphi Forum, Wrestling's Finest. Everybody can go there. You don't have to have the game. Pauly, I was telling him earlier, has one of the best unique wrestling worlds going on. He doesn't base it necessarily on feuds. He bases it more result driven. So if you win your matches, you earn points on it. He has an elaborate scoring scale, and then that will move you in position to get title matches. And so you don't, like that example I gave with Piper and an outside ally, if that happens for him, all he really cares about, and he can explain it better than I am, but all he cares about is Tommy Rich gets points because he won. And since Piper lost, he either loses points or he didn't gain anything. And then it moves on. Pauly's not stuck into having to do a feud now. It's a very, I love his, not just the way he reports his matches, which I do, but I also love the format where it's based on points and how you're ranked. And what he does is after every so many cards, he posts his rankings. And so I love to look at it, and I'll go back to a previous post like a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say, ooh, this guy went from 6th to 4th. And then I'll look at who's the biggest dropper and who's the biggest mover upwards. And, and I tell people, if you ever try the game out or if you're not interested in the game but you love wrestling, there are some phenomenal wrestling worlds we have at our forum. I mean, these guys, they're amazing with their imagination, their reporting skills, and just how they come up with this stuff amazes me. So,
oh yes,
but at least check the forum. I mean, again, you don't have to buy and join in on our discussions. You don't have to have the game to, post at our forum. Jump in and we get some really good discussions going. We're just starting a group tag team tournament here probably this weekend. Everybody gets to pick a territory, pick 8 tag teams, and we're going to run some tournaments. And then I get some valuable data that can help me when I do some tag team tweaks. But just some great stuff. And I know for those that follow Pauly's channel here, you will really, his stuff is fun because you get hooked because you want to say, wow, that guy's won like 3 matches in a row now. Wonder where Pauly's going to go with him now because he's on a roll. Or Pauly will say, this loss really hurt him. He might not be around much longer. So, consider checking it out. I think it's really, really fun for him.
Yeah, let me just see if I could get the Delphi. I was just showing the forum, Tom, and see if I can get the address of it. Forums.delphiforums.com. And there's a whole bunch of gibberish here. /n/main.asp ? Web tag Wrestling's Finest. I'll go ahead and post the link when we're done with the chat tonight, and everybody can see it for themselves. While we were doing all that, Tom, I was showing Don's forum, Scar.
He does a great job with that.
And Don, like me, Don ran a group on Rampage Wrestling, which is a Lance Hafner game that came out in the 90s. And yeah, I followed him over here. I saw him doing the Scar and a couple other things, the Rock America tournament, and he did such a great job of it. Geez, this was like late 2017. So I ought to give this a try, and that's how I got hooked on Wrestling's Finest. I wanted to get a few questions in because while we were doing all that, we had some good ones. Sports Time Machine Utah Mike asks, so is there any chance Wrestling's Finest will have a sale? $99, if I am right, is the price right now. Tom, take that one away.
That's a great question. And I honestly don't know if we've done sales. I usually check with Gary. And the one thing, a couple things, I'm going to kind of get a little bit off your question, but when $100 is a lot to pay for any game, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's 2,500 wrestlers you get around that. There's 97 managers. You never have to pay for another wrestler. Like when I get these, we get these AEW, there's 12 tag teams I forgot to mention. ROH, we'll probably have around, 70, 75. They get sent to I have an email distribution list. They get sent to everybody for free. My friend John and I are going to be rating, we're going to go on a big project here probably this summer on rating territory tag teams. And we did that, probably a year and a half ago. And I think we added about 50. And Don may rate a few. That we have about 3 or 4 raters. I never know for sure what they're doing. But I know John and I, between us, I think it was more like 70 tag teams we rated. And they get sent to everybody for free. So once you buy the game, Some games, and I understand they maybe charge 30 or 40 for the game and you get maybe 50 wrestlers. Then what they do is they release wrestler sets every so often, and then you buy them, which is actually a pretty good strategy, because if you buy the game and you don't care for it, you've only had to invest $40 or 50, whatever they charge you. If you like the game a lot, then you keep buying all the sets that come out. For us, you buy it, you get everything at one time. We do occasionally, I think we've done 2 or 3, we do a major update, meaning we had all kinds of new features. We redid the whole game screen last August. And Gary and I, one of my closest friends in the world, the guy who programs the game, I've known him now, I don't even know, close to 20 years. We had a friendly disagreement. I thought we should have charged 30 or 40 for that update because there was a lot of stuff. And Gary said, no, he goes, we should only charge 20, which I thought was a great deal. But anyway, to answer your question, the other thing I look at when I have done a sale is I look at how many games I've sold maybe in the last month, because I know it kind of sounds corny, but I'd hate for 3 or 4 people that bought the game in 1 week, and now 3 days later I drop it $20, and they're thinking, oh, I should have waited. So I kind of take all that into account. But the great thing is you get a demo version, which is free. It's the complete game, everything. The only difference is you get, I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's 4, 6, or 8 singles wrestlers and 4, 6, or 8 tag teams. And you can play it as long as you want. There's no time limit. I'll answer all your questions, of course. I send you all the newsletters. And then if it's a day, a month, I just had somebody 6 months ago got the demo and said, you know what, I keep forgetting, but I want to order it. So he ordered the game. And if you don't, appreciate you checking it out, and you move on. And I actually prefer people to try the demo, because $100 is a lot for any game. And I want you to find any fatal flaws that this game has that you cannot live with. If you say, I don't like it this detailed, I wish I could make imaginary tag teams, which you can't do, and I'm not a fan of all doing, because I'm not trying to make this a fantasy game. I know a lot of people would like to do it, and that's great. And if that's a deal breaker, then you don't get the game. So, and Al, I just see you responded. Salvatore Bellomo is in the game, pal. He's in there. If I can give a quick shout out there, Stefan, thanks for posting. He's one of the newer customers. I was just about
to get to that. I'll show you what
Stefan said. My good friend Mark there.
Yeah, there's Mark's comment. And hello to you, Mark, and hello to everybody joining in. We could actually go into the game and we could find where Mr. Bellomo is.
I don't know for sure where he's at, but I know he's in the game.
Well, I would think he'd be in one of 2 places.
He's either in the prelim or he's in the master, which I don't think he is. I think he's in the prelim.
Okay, no, actually, the prelim goes Jimmy Backlund, John Bonello, Brooklyn Brawler, Rusty Brooks, Snake Brown. Might be in the master, Tom.
If he is, now I'm going to have to question myself. Maybe Al's right. Here I thought Al only cared about superstar Billy Graham. Yeah, he's right. He's not in here.
He is not in here. I'm looking at the BEs right now. The Beast, George Becker, Brutus Beefcake, Chris Benoit, Matt Bentley, Brute Bernard, Chief Bigheart, Bam Bam Bigelow. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Al.
You're right, Al. We're going to have to maybe see if we can get Salvatore in the game.
He'd be perfect for it. Whoops, come back over here. Yeah, he'd be perfect for the game. He'd probably be one of those guys. It's probably not a prelim, but maybe kind of a fringe master,
kind of a mid-carder kind of. And another quick comment on Mark, who's on here. He God, it's been a long time. It's probably been 8 or 9 years ago. Mark and I spent a couple months. I had a blast getting to know Mark, talked to him on the phone. We rated a bunch of Central States wrestlers, the Vikings,
the old Kansas City territory.
And it was a lot of fun. And he was a great help in submitting names and then providing information. And then, then I took it from there and dug into them. And then he did a lot of play testing. And I always have great memories when I get to work with somebody individually. I think about 15 years ago, I got to work with somebody, and it was 16 or 20 guys from the old LA wrestling days. Torres, Freddie Blassie, John Tolis, the Guerreros, and same type deal. We had a blast doing it, and several times, I've collaborated with someone, and it's always great memories, remembering getting to work with people. So I'm kind of bummed out now that Salvatore's not in the game.
Well, I figure you'd figure that. I didn't know beforehand either, because I haven't had a chance to use Salvatore Bellomo myself. I didn't know myself, so that was, you live and you learn, Tom.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. See what else we got here. Let's see here. Mark Mo says, I think it was around 2013.
I think that sounds about right, because that's when we were adding the computer opponent. And I know Mark did a lot of play testing. There was like 3 or 4 of us, checking out. Do you think that was he'd come back and say, I think it occurs too much. So then we'd go in and reprogram the computer. So he was a big help on that.
Oh, I think you're on version 3 right now.
Correct. Yes.
And could you just run through what version 1 was? Obviously the introduction of the game, but what changed from 1 to 2, and maybe what changed from 2 to 3?
I think, it's hard to remember exactly, but I know mainly they were adding more matches. Like in this version 3, maybe you can show it later on your game screen. If we put in, I know we put in tape fist match, but if you go all the way to the bottom, Pauly, pick lights out cage match or no DQ.
Okay, I'll do lights out cage match.
And just pick any 2 guys, doesn't matter who.
$1 Million Man. And I'm thinking of a good baby face for him. Let's see here. I'll use the face Kevin Sullivan.
Okay, now here's the thing. Lights out matches, what they were for those who haven't heard of them. In this game, when he selected cage, it's a cage match. It's same as our normal cage match, but a lights out match was when 2 guys hated each other so much that the sanctioning organization like the NWA, they would make a big deal that this is not sanctioned by the NWA. We want nothing to do with it. And so what they would say is, at the end of the regular scheduled card, we will dim the lights, and when the lights come back on, it will indicate that the lights out non-sanctioned match is about to begin. And a lot of times they'd say, for those with families, you may want to take your families home prior to the lights dimming, because this is going to be a very violent match. And of course, everybody would stay. So if you could just go ahead and click OK, Al.
Okay.
And then hit action a couple times.
Hit action a couple times. Okay, here you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never had to use this yet, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the regular sanctioned action is about to end. The arena lights will be turned off briefly. This signifies the end of the regular show. When the arena lights come back on, stay tuned for an unsanctioned lights out match.
Click that. Watch what happens.
Oh, there it goes. The lights go out.
Dimming of the lights.
I have never seen that before.
So now the match would just go on as normal. But that was I'd asked Gary if he could, and he came up with a way to black the screen out. So anyway, just something silly there to try to replicate it. The other thing Gary did, which was pretty cool, we'll show later, but you can actually when you select a TV match, we added version 3, the TV studio match, where it replicates like the TV studio matches where the outside ring wasn't as violent, the match timing's different, but you can actually view your text file through an old TV screen. So Gary, if you find like TV match anywhere on there, TV studio. It doesn't matter which one. Click OK, and
there it goes.
You can watch your text file come up in that. And Pauly, if you could push the turn button on the TV.
Okay. There it goes. Yeah,
It'll change to different images. But back to your question. I'm sorry. Version 2, we added some matches. We added Battle Royals and Royal Rumbles. And we actually had a version 1B. That was the biggest one ever. It's when we added the computer opponent. That was back in November of 2013. And so we started adding text files with version 2. And then Gary had the great idea, Tom, you should add text files for everything. Oh, okay, that's great. Well, I never realized what I was going to get into. And it took me probably, because I think we released version 2 in maybe 2016, something like that. And it took me about 2 to 3 years to get all the text files added. We added more matches. We completely redid the game screen, the selection screen, tried to streamline it more. And then just some, chart changes, just kind of little things that a lot of people wouldn't notice. A new one we put for version 3 was my old brother's idea. It's a great one too. It used to be if a wrestler had 90 points off in cuts.
Yes, this was great. This was fantastic. Yes.
If combined cuts were 150 off, then it was stopped for the well-being of both wrestlers. So what we decided to do is make that cut number random. And it's based on, I honestly can't remember what it is now, but it starts at 15 to replicate the time Lex Luger had, I believe, Ric Flair in the torture rack. Mm-hmm. And Luger had a small cut, and they stopped the match because Luger was bleeding too much. And it was a farce, but that was the angle they wanted to run. So there's a 1% chance that a match, I believe, could stop if a guy only has 15 off in cuts. But I think it goes all the way up now to 120. The great thing is you have no idea what, and I don't either. I start a match, I have no idea. It could be 59, it could be 97. So every time you have a cut, you're like, whoa, he's up to like 91 off and this match hasn't stopped.
Right.
Or a guy will have 30 off and you're thinking, I probably got a ways to go. All of a sudden you'll have a 33-point cut and it will say, referee quickly calls the doctor to the ringside area. Doctor comes in, examines Roddy Piper. He looks at the referee and shakes his head no. Referee calls for the bell, awards the decision to Tommy Rich for the well-being of Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper is livid and wants the match to continue, but the referee's decision is final. That'd be like a result you get. So you never know what that magic cut number is now. And the other beauty is you can turn the cut stoppage off if you want. So say you're doing a cage match and you don't want it to stop for blood, you just turn it off. So yeah, I would say the main thing is the version 2. We added more matches. We added like I said, the Battle Royal, the Royal Rumble. Just cleaned up some of the visual stuff, tried to make it a little bit better. And then the version 3 was a biggie with all the text files, some new matches. It was a very, very big thing, and I wish I could remember everything in it, but I know when I sent the newsletter out to everyone, I think there were like 24 things on there. Mm-hmm. And we always Gary and I always talk a little bit about stuff like, what do you think, anything we want to talk about for the next one? There's no guarantee we ever do another version, but there's always kind of ideas kind of rolling around in our head. So
Mark Moe asks a good question. Al, you're famous, buddy. You're famous. What about Al and his match commentary? For some reason, I thought it said master. Al did a show, I think it was Sunday, out of his San Francisco circuit, and you were in there with me for a bit because I was doing a stream at 6, so I just checked it out before I came in. And yeah, his commentary is excellent, so I got to put him over for that.
My brother, who kind of was with me when we started designing the game back in, I think it was '82. I held the phone up and he told me to shut up because he wanted to listen to Al. He said, in his opinion, in whatever 40 years, almost 40 years of the game, he said, I think that was the best Wrestling Finest moment ever, listening to his play-by-play. Because what he does is he does the chops like that. He does the sound effects. He screams at the appropriate time. He let everybody know that the grandparents drink for free on Wednesday nights at the Cow
I love
Palace.
that.
Family fun for everyone, and grandparents give your grandkids a sip of it too. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And my little brother, when he got all done, he said on the phone, he goes, Tom, I got a little man crush going on that Al right now. He's the man. So it was unbelievable. We laughed so hard, and I was exhausted listening to him. I can only imagine how Al is when he's done.
Yeah, he and I do with the Glory Days boxing fights too, and even with that, everything he does. I was telling you off air. He reminds me, when this game show host had a good game show to work with, he reminds me a lot of Jeff Edwards, the old 70s and 80s game show host. His most famous show was a bomb treasure hunt. But he did Jackpot and he did a few other shows, and he reminds me a lot of Jeff Edwards, which I say with the utmost sincerity. Arnold Hunter.
Hi, Arnold.
Say hello to you, sir. I think Arnold has the game. Trying to think of what else I could ask. You think that anytime? Well, we were going through version 1, version 2, version 3, and you were saying you don't know about version 4. Trying to think. Guys, help me out with some questions here. I'm drawing a blank.
I can just say for version 4, there's some tag team things been working on. There might be another match we try to add. Probably a few more text files. We worked so hard on version 3. It came out in August of last year. And I was actually just completely burned out on wrestling once that version came out, because, we had a lot of orders, and, you fill them, you want to make sure everybody understands it. And by probably October 1st, I hated wrestling. I mean, I hated it. And, I didn't do anything for a while, but then, we call it the wrestling fever. It gradually comes back, and it started back up a little bit. And, all of a sudden something pops into your head, and I might say, hey, Gary, before I think on this anymore, would this be something you think you could do? And usually I get the answer, maybe, not sure, till I get into it, which is understandable. And then I either work on it a little bit more, or I just push it off to the side, because I don't play the game as much as I'd like to, because usually I'm working on something. And we started this AEW project early March. So I've been doing that for about a little over 2 months. And I had started a project, 6 guys in a big van, where we were touring different wrestling venues. And I stopped it because I was working on all this AEW, and I'd like to get back to that. I'd like to get back to my Georgia. But, there's always something Gary and I will think of. It's just, is it worth adding to the game, or are we just adding something to add something? And we don't want to do that. And, both of us have to be, our wrestling fevers both have to be very high at the same time. Sometimes I'm eager to go, and, Gary's working on other projects, or he starts to want to do it. And I'm like, God, I'm not really in the mood, but keep talking to me and I'll get there. And that's kind of how it works. And, we go from there. So, it's always fun, though.
Guys in a Van is a great read, says Mark Moe. I'll throw an idea out at you, Tom.
Okay.
How about if you have a Royal Rumble function in here in Wrestling's Finest? Do you think that there would be any way in a subsequent release of Royal Rumble that you could control the order of who goes in?
I think that actually came up, and I believe it can be. And that, so I'm writing that down. Royal Rumble Gamer Picks order. One thing I did forget to mention is we added I think it was version 2, we added a rating system where we actually give a number rating for every wrestler and tag team. And there's like, I want to say 8 categories we rate them on, and it's a weighted system. So I don't like giving away formulas, but
True.
and I don't remember, to be honest, but for example, the pin rating and the stamina rating are the number one attributes. And by that, I mean, you get a rating from 1 to 10, based on what your rating is. Then we value at what I call a power 5. So if your pin rating is really good and out of 10 points, you're granted 9, that would be multiplied by 5. So you'd get 45 points. If your stamina, say, wasn't like somebody like Ultimate Warrior who didn't have a very good stamina, his
blew up quickly.
Then that's also a 5 power. So you take 5 times 5, so you get 25. And I think there's 8 categories we rate you for, and they're all weighted. Like, for example, illegal pin rating, you get, again, from 1 to 10, but it's only a value of 1. So if you have an illegal pin rating in the game of, say, 8, it actually comes out, that gets you 8 points. You just multiply it by 1 because it's not nearly as important as some other things. So we added that. And then I forgot the biggie. For version 3, we added a match star rating, which uses a very complicated formula to rank the match on how certain things occurred. Like, again, I want to give everything away, but certain things occur in a match that up the value of the match. And you can probably use your imagination, what might make a match more exciting or more enjoyable to watch. So at the end of every match, you'll get, at the top of it, you'll get a little star system, anywhere from 0.5 all the way up to 5. And you really have to earn a 5-star match.
Oh, yes.
So, and again, the reason I like giving the stuff away is then people, why did you include this? Or why is this one in there? So we play tested the heck out of it. And I'm kind of old school that you really, really have to earn high scores. And so when we first did it, we were getting way too many 4.5s and 5s. So we toned down some of the values of certain things. And like, I'll give you one, time of the match. So we said, just because you went 30 minutes, should you really get that many, what we call bonus points? So when it's trial by error, but we did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of matches to get, to come up with a very accurate star rating. Now, sometimes I'll look at it and say, geez, I can't believe it scored that low or that high. And I know others say, wow, that was more than a 4-star. The one thing no system can ever grab or capture is the emotional feel of the person running the match. You can call it an intangible or what, but anytime you have a rating or ranking system, it can only be based on numbers. And that's, that's kind of the same here. And I think version 3 did add the title matches, the world title. And when you use defend the title, you use a different title, a chart, if it's defend the title and a world title versus a title match that's not a world title. You also, every wrestler's third pin rating goes down by 1 if they're designated the champion. So if a wrestler has a pin rating of 25, 25, 4, and you make him the champion, he's now 25, 25, 3. So it gives the champion just a slight advantage and make it just a little bit harder for him to lose the belt. And again, the one that's hard for me to remember is actually version 2, because I know the computer opponent was a huge one, but then version 2, we really did add several more matches, I believe. And that's when we started adding the text files. And that I think the text files really add to the game because it gives you more variety in the results.
Arnold Hunter says one of the things I like to do is watch old school wrestling on YouTube, of which there is plenty. Open up the game and read the wrestler card in the game. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Very cool.
Idea. It's like me with Glory Days Boxing. I might not know, a name from the 30s or 40s, or I might not know a name of a lesser known fighter in the 80s, but you could go up YouTube and you could watch, like, say, Larry Holmes and Ozzy Ocasio, or Alfredo Evangelista, or somebody like that. Tom, one of the things that just came to mind was, how easy or difficult is it to rate preliminary wrestlers?
All right, I'm going to give you a big trade secret here.
Okay.
You look at the preliminary wrestlers in the game. The only thing that changes from wrestler to wrestler is their name. They have the identical record or identical rating, and the reason is, it is so hard to rate a preliminary guy because there's no way you can get a move set. Because if you watch, preliminary guys, depending on what territory, like if it was Georgia or the WWF back like in the late 70s, early 80s, the prelim guys they basically just got beat up.
Yes.
And there was no way. If you want to bore yourself to death, Pauly, have 2 prelim guys wrestle each other.
Yeah.
Might go 60 minutes because they have very, very few pin attempts, because you have to make it, you can't say impossible, but you got to make it like 99.99%. They're not going to beat a big star. It never happened. Now, did a big star get disqualified? Maybe counted out. Yes, but it was rare. And so the prelim guys, it's just all it changes is the names. The hardest guys to rate for the game are mid-carders. So if you look at somebody like George Wells, Johnny Rods, David Sammartino, those guys are really – John rated a batch of them, and he said it was the hardest ratings he ever did because they have to beat the prelim guys. They can't beat the big stars, but they got to do a good enough job where you might think they could beat the big stars. So when it's the mid-carders that are really, really hard. And one thing I also want to throw out on the ratings, we have a lot of wrestlers that have multiple ratings, not just heel or face, but also different stages of their career. And how that started was, I wanted to do an LA project, and I wanted to use the young Roddy Piper. This would have been like 77 maybe. And there's no way it would have been accurate if I would have used the Roddy Piper in the game, who's rated as a heel from the Mid-Atlantic, because he's very strong rating. So I thought, it's kind of unrealistic to run an LA territory with this Roddy Piper. So what I did was, my friend John had sent me a 22-disc set of Roddy Piper, and a lot of it was LA. And I studied it, took note after note, and I made what at that time I called an early Roddy Piper rating. And he's not very good. He's okay. And it fit in perfect in LA. And so then John and I decided, why don't we do that for a lot of guys? So we did an early Rick Steamboat. We did like an early Randy Savage. Hulk Hogan has a rating called, when he wrestled as Sterling Golden in Southeastern in Georgia. So I don't know how many are in the game, but at least 25 or 30 now, probably more than that, where they have like Jake Roberts. And we used to call it an early rating, and then people would say, well, what's an early rating? So John and I went through every guy, and we assigned a year. So I don't know what Roddy Piper is off the top of my head, but I'm guessing his first one is like 78 minus or 77 minus, and then his other heel would be 1 year above it and later on.
Roddy Piper has a 79 minus where his heel rating is 107. And then he has an 80 plus where he's 153. And he has a babyface card where he's 149.
So if you can tell the two Roddy Piper heels, if you're going to use them 79 or before, you would use the 107. And I tried to capture the actual, you got the great picture of them there, by the way, the early one. But then if you want to use them for his WWF or Portland a little bit, or especially Mid-Atlantic, then you would use the 80 plus. So we have a lot of guys now. I'm sorry, I don't know the number, but we give the specific year so you don't have to guess. Well, I want to use Tito Santana. Which card should I use? What does early mean? So we put a year by them all, and that way, you can decide, what area, or say, well, I want to use the, Tito Santana when he was Intercontinental Champion. It makes it easier to know which one to use.
On Santana, I use his ladder card. I use 83 plus where he's holding the Intercontinental title, and he's 140. And then in 82 minus when he was first starting out and in a whole bunch of territories, including Florida, he's a 110.
Yep. So that's quite a 140 to 110 is actually quite a difference. And I use that Tito Santana in my my Georgia one. So that that's one thing we try to do, because a lot of people run true territories. Like I run a Georgia, Don runs Memphis, and we have another gentleman that runs the old WWF, kind of a little bit of a hybrid. But if you and John does he runs like 8 different territories where he does one match a month for each one, and so you try to make it where the wrestlers you're using are proper for that time period. And I know some people said, have you ever thought of doing it by like years? I honestly don't know how different Tommy Rich would be from 1980 to 81. And it takes so long to rate wrestlers that, I mean, you could, if you were trying to do that, you just bang your head against the wall in frustration. So we rate everybody at their prime, other than if they have, like the Roddy Piper 79 minus, that would not be his prime rating. So, and a lot of guys have heel faces cards. Some gamers wish you could, I'd like to have Ricky Steamboat be a heel. Well, first of all, he never wrestled as a heel. Mm-hmm. And some people say, couldn't you rate him? I don't know how I'd rate Ricky Steamboat as a heel, because he never wrestled as a heel. So we only rate guys based on, how they actually performed. And the ratings in Wrestling's Finest, they're very, very close to my heart, meaning the integrity of the ratings. I've been trying, I've just about got him. There's a guy named The Mummy. You might remember him, Pauly. Benny Ramirez wrestled in Texas. He'd come in wrapped in bandages like a mummy. And I think I finally got enough stuff to rate him, and then I'm going to play test him. But I get requests, and I say, I would love to rate him, but I'm sorry, I've looked for stuff. I just can't find anything. And then I'll ask the other 2 raters who go quite a ways back. If you look at the pioneers and the shooters, there's a set of shooters, 11 wrestlers. I kind of half regret rating, but I wanted to test the game engine, and I did this back in 2002. These guys are unbelievable. Joe Stetcher, Ed Strangler Lewis, George Hackenschmidt, Tom Jenkins. I learned so much. In fact, look, can you call Tom Jenkins up real quick?
Yes, sir. Tom Jenkins is over here on the right. View the card. Okay.
And look at his specialties. What's the top one? Is there a calloused hands?
Calloused hands to the face.
All right. Here's the story behind that. He worked in mines, and his hands became so calloused. They were just hard as rock with calluses. And so when he'd get in the ring, all he would do is he'd put his thumb on each side of the nose, and he would just grab your face and just run his hand straight down, and it would just rip up his opponent's face because callous hands. And these wrestlers, I had more fun researching. I got to read 2 very good books. One was on Joe Stetcher, and another was just early shoot wrestling, and I learned so much on them. And so I wanted to rate them to see if the game engine could handle it. Well, much to my chagrin, people started using these shooters in their regular replays, and it's like it'd be like taking the 1971 Lakers versus one of the great Golden State Warrior teams. I can't stand that, because what are you going to say? Jerry West all of a sudden, oh, I think he would have made 40% of his three-pointers. So you got to guess and make stuff up. Or you say, let's not use the three-point shot. Well, then you penalize Steph Curry. So
Right.
this era just does not fit. I know they can be beat, but it's very, very hard to beat them. And so somebody's, great, why'd you rate them then? I go, I should have rated them and just kept them and run shooter tournaments. Well, then the other file that's a very strong group are the Pioneers.
Oh, yes.
And, Michael, he goes by Mahler at our forum. He's rated some incredible guys in here, just legends that I've done a lot of research on just to learn about them. And then he also rated a bunch of European wrestlers. And so, I'm glad we get these guys in the game, because these guys worked hard. It's kind of nice to keep their names and memories going. Not that a lot of them are used, but it's always cool when somebody does use somebody from the Pioneer set, just to give them a little bit of, hey, this guy's not, completely forgotten. But very good job on these ratings too.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the ratings are, like I said, very close to my heart. I'm also old school. I get people that don't post at the forum a lot, and they'll request wrestlers, and I try to fill them, but I always try to fill the guys' request first who post at the forum. Like Pauly, if he said, hey Tom, I really wish you could rate a guy. I'm not sure you can, but if you could, since Pauly promotes the game, he posts at the forum, his request would go to the top of my list, versus a guy that I hear from twice a year. He might email me and say, Tom, any chance you could rate so-and-so? I'll put him on my list, but, Big Pauly, Don, John, so many guys at the forum, Arnold, guys that post there, Mark, they're going to get preference, because I only have so much time to rate. And in fact, if you just saw that tail walk by, you're going to like this, Paul. You see the tail on me there?
Yes.
That's our cat.
Oh, yes.
You're going to love this name. My wife allowed me to name him this, the Great Kabuki. Now we just call him Kabuki, but he's a little brat, so he's the perfect Great Kabuki from Georgia. So
I've had my cat Harry on a few videos. So.
Okay, well, the only reason I did it is because his tail came flying by as he walked by here, but he's the Great Kabuki. But so that's why the ratings are. I know Mark probably wanted a couple more guys rated for our Central States, but I just said, Mark, unless we get more information, I can't rate them. And we're not going to guess. We're not going to rate somebody just to get them in the game. And I know, when you're a game designer, you probably look at things. Well, I know you look at them differently than like a customer, but from a game design standpoint, you're always trying to keep your thesis statement of the game and the integrity, on a very, very high level. And, that's why some wrestling fans are more of the rah ha ha, beer pretzel. Oh, this is great. He's going to beat the heck out of him. Wrestling's Finest is more designed for the hardcore fans.
Absolutely.
So, and that's like when Al, and, Pauly, I've watched a lot of your videos, when you're doing your matches, like Al does, you have your different spins, but you both take it very seriously. You're not making fun of wrestling. I know Al probably wishes Superstar Billy Graham would win every match he's ever in, and that's fine. We all have our favorites, but there's still a very serious tone that people take, and that's I've always said this is not a grins and giggles game, and it's you go back and you think this is these guys are really trying to win. It's important to win. They're studying their opponent, they're planning strategy, and we try to incorporate in the game, the curveballs, like when you have injuries come up, where you might have to trade out of certain holds for 7 matches because you're suffering an arm injury. So, it's, those things are added, and some of them you can use or not use. We have wild events. They come out anytime you get, I think there's 12 cards in the game. If they come up back to back, you can get some type of wild event. And I didn't know if you know this, Pauly, when you play the game, you can actually turn on the fast action cards and they'll be off to the side.
Yes, I knew.
Some people want to know how stuff works. Others could care less, and it's everybody's own call on that.
Like, for instance, here's the card.
Oh, this is an awesome one. I'm glad you brought this up, Pauly. This was a Herman idea.
Okay, we'll just do a roll here. Oh, look,
we got one.
Something. Yeah, I got one. Argument between wrestlers in heel locker room prompts wrestler in the second match from the top to ask for a face turn. Promoter denies request. Wrestler and promoter agree to disagree. Wrestler will wrestle tonight's match, then leave the territory. Door is open for a possible return. How about that?
You only get those, I think, you get a 5 out of 100 chance, I think. I think if you turn a 0-0 to 0-4, you get what we call a match intangible, and it's funny he got one. And I tell people, you got to be honest. If you're going to use it, then you got to use it. You can't say, well, I don't like this one, so I'm not going to use it. That's like getting a re-roll on your batter's card when he strikes out. You want him to hit a home run, so you re-roll. So if, say I was doing this in Georgia, and my second guy on top was the Mass Superstar. He's not going to leave my territory. And that's one of the curveballs that the game will throw your way, just like, the injuries. I added a standalone. Gary said we can incorporate it later. I just want to see if people liked it. I don't even know if they do. I'm going to have to ask. It's a doctor's locker room post-match injury check. And if you roll a 99 or 100, it means a wrestler may have been injured. And then you roll using his injury rating, and then you kind of go from there. He may be out for a while, he may not. And the injuries like I got 3 guys injured in my Georgia replay right now. Santana, Tommy Rich, and I don't remember who the third one is, but it kind of throws problems at you. So I know Herman was doing a match once with Vern Gagne and Sheik Adnan LKC, and Casey hit him with that sword he used to carry, and I think Vern was out like 480 some days.
I have that on the spreadsheet, the list you're talking about.
Oh, there it is. That's exact. Thanks, Pauly. There it is. That's the post-match injury check. It's just, it's random if it comes up, but then you have to use the wrestler's injury rating. And guys like Tommy Rich or the Von Erichs are all like 8 or 9 out of 10. So if they roll a 99 or 100, there's not only a great chance they're going to be injured, but there's a great chance they're going to be out a while. So that was something we had in version 3. It's a wrestler has to wrestle impaired. So if he gets injured, but it doesn't specify how long, you can use this injury chart right here to tell you how long, how many matches. So when you start the match, you set wrestler wrestles with impairment, meaning his ratings go down. And you can also use it if you're doing like a one-night tournament. And if he has to wrestle like 3 times and he really gets the stuffing kicked out of him the first 2 matches, by the 3rd match, he's going to have to wrestle as impaired, meaning he's going to have a real hard chance of winning. So I'm glad you pulled that up. I haven't seen it in a while. The other thing, some of you have seen them. I think Pauly's watched a few. I do have a YouTube channel that I have. I think there's 58 videos. Each one covers a different topic. I wish I could do them with Al's exuberance, but I have to keep them kind of toned down because I'm trying to explain certain features of the game. But anyway, it's if you enjoy wrestling and you enjoy wrestling games, it'd be great if you check it out. And like I said, there is the full demo. It's the exact game you get if you buy it. It's just instead of getting all 2,500 wrestlers, I think you get whatever it is, 12 or so, and you try it out. If you like it, then you order it, and I send you all the wrestlers.
Yeah. How I use the impairment, for my tournaments is I use it in the event somebody either has a bye, gets cut, or if somebody has spent a lot of time in the ring as opposed to the other grappler. Like, say, somebody spent 40 minutes in total in the ring over 2 bouts and another guy spends 16, then I will declare the guy who has spent 40 minutes in the ring impaired. That's how I do it.
And see, Pauly, those are awesome because I don't like putting a lot of that stuff in the game because I don't want to force. That's like the injuries. If somebody's out for 23 matches, the game doesn't automatically not allow you to use them, but it also what it does is it allows Pauly to say, I don't want to use injuries. So he just ignores them all. My thing I just tell people is you have to answer to yourself. Do you want to use injuries? And if you say yes, you're having this private conversation.
Right.
Then if an injury comes on, I'm reading what Mark said. He had the Viking get injured for 12 months. Now, if Mark's going to use injuries and all of a sudden that comes up and he says, well, I'm not using it because I like the Viking and I want him to get a huge push in my game or my wrestling world. Well, I don't know. I'm just a believer. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And that's just me. Now, Pauly, can I ask you to do one thing?
Yes, sir.
Can you go into your Wrestling's Finest game folder?
All right. Oh,
you got to go into your C drive.
Oh, yes. I will get into my C drive post haste. And yeah, I go to C.
And then just open up Wrestling's Finest.
My Wrestling's Finest.
Can you go up to text files?
In fact, let me just blow up the screen a little bit.
Okay.
Text files.
Would be towards the top.
Text phrases, you mean?
Yeah, text phrases.
There you go.
All right, now find, I think it's pre-match intangible.
Pre-match intangibles. You are correct, sir.
All right,
there you go.
Open that up. And I want you to look at one here. Some of you guys are going to like it. The chances of it coming up are very, how do you want to say it? Very unlikely. But I'm trying to find it here real quick on mine. Go to about the 10th one from the bottom. It starts with if Bruiser Brody.
1, 2,
maybe 12 up.
6, 7. You start the matches. Handshakes all around. Good planning on your part. We'll have to delay the start of the first match by several minutes. Knock on wood.
Okay, I'm sorry. The one you want to go to is the pre-match intangible. It's just 3 words.
Yeah, I see it here. I have that up. It's pre-match. I have pre-match intangibles up. Okay. No intangibles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, don't have no in it. Just do the pre-match intangibles.
Okay. You say it's about 12 from the top.
From the bottom.
Okay. The heel in the second match. The heel in the third match. 2 undisclosed wrestlers get into an altercation. 2 undisclosed.
Yeah, it should start with if Bruiser Brody.
If Bruiser Brody. Not seeing it yet.
Okay, that one we might not have added, but what it is some of you might like this one. If Bruiser Brody is involved in the promotion in any way, he holds the promoter up for more pay, which the promoter refuses to pay. Brody suddenly grabs his stuff and walks out on the promoter. Promoter is fed up with Bruiser Brody being out for Brody and decides to not use him for 180 days. That's the classic Bruiser Brody where he would hold promoters up for more money. And so we put
that a lot.
We put that in the game, but what you can actually do, I don't know if you've ever looked, but those are all, when you have a pre-match that occurs, these are where where it's going to pull it from. And so, and again, my rule I tell people is if you're going to use the pre-match or the injuries, then use them. Don't, it's my favorite guy. I don't want him to be injured. Kind of the same with the wild events. So, and Paul, I don't know if you can always go in your file there and look like under wild events if you ever want to know what all the wild events are. Some people don't want to know. They want to be surprised. So they don't want to read what they could be. They want, oh, I've never seen this one. So, but you know, you're
A few weeks ago, I had my first cancellation of a card with the London circuit.
Oh, from the pre-match.
First time that had ever happened in all the years I've been doing GSW. And that was fun. And now I got to come up with, well, the thing of using London, I could just do rounds matches, the UK rounds matches, and I could just use that as the gimmick.
Well, then when you have wild events, like you'll have something like manager comes out and observes the match, standing silently and stoically. He jots some notes down and walks away. Now, you can use that or not use it. You know, maybe you want one of the wrestlers that was in the ring to join that manager stable. Or the other one is wrestling legend comes out to provide commentary, but then partway through the match decides to attack, one of the wrestlers. It's up to you to decide who that legendary wrestler was to determine, and the game I think it flips a coin which wrestler he attacks. So if he attacks a good guy, then you'd make the announcer a heel. And if he attacks the bad guy, you could actually make him either a heel or a good guy. So we try to put some curveballs in there. And some people honestly don't like it. They said, I don't use any of that. I work hard all day. I don't want to come home and have to run an hour wrestling card and have to sit here and make these decisions. I just want to run my matches and go to bed. And I respect that. And that's great. And you don't have to do any of this. You just do your matches and call it a night. But those that play the game a lot know what I'm talking about. I've had people say they're doodling notes at work during a boring meeting about some angles, and all of a sudden the guy next to them will start peeking at their paper, and they'll give them kind of a weird look, and they'll quick cover the paper up.
Yep.
Or they're stuck in traffic daydreaming, and all of a sudden somebody honks the horn for them to get going because they've been sitting there thinking about wrestling angles.
Sometimes I'm sitting in bed and I'm thinking, okay, should I do this? Should I do that? Yeah, it happens.
I can't tell you the number of times I have gone to bed. That's why I can't do matches late at night, because I'll go to bed and I'll be all amped up. And I mean, you could say that in any game. You play a baseball game, guy hits a 3-run walk-off homer, you go to bed, you're all kind of amped up. But I'm telling you what, wrestling, it really, and you could say this with any wrestling game, if the game's designed to make you think, it can keep you up at nights. But I'll tell you what, when you're stumped on something and either something happens in the game or the light goes off in your head. I've had people say, I was out for a jog and I wasn't even halfway done, and all of a sudden the light came on, what I could do with what had happened. And unfortunately, I had a ways to go back home, but had that started early in my run, I probably would have gone home because they were so excited to go get stuff jotted down that they had to complete their run. So you are going to have some pretty cool moments, but you're also going to have some very frustrating moments.
Mark says he found the Bruiser Brody event in his text file, so it is out there.
I'll send you the most update one I have, Pauly.
Okay, that could be. It's Bruiser Brody I use in the Dallas circuit. I got 18 different circuits. Now, I probably in year 5, I'm going to probably curve that down to maybe about 7 or 8 as to try to resemble the late 80s of wrestling, when everybody was starting to merge and World Class went off and did its own thing. And there was this schism with World Class, AWA, and Memphis. So I'm thinking about doing something like that with year 5.
See, Pauly, knows wrestling very, very, very well. The little details and who wrestled where and all that. With his, it's not the word. I don't mean imagination, but when you combine his knowledge of wrestling and wrestlers, and then you add his imagination, he just comes up with. I spent more time because of him trying to track down that damn ELO scoring system. I spent nights, and the thing that always stuck me was I couldn't find different values for winning. It was either you got +1, 0, or -1. And I wanted to have different values if you won by pin or DQ. And I finally found one, and I was ecstatic. I started a project, suspended it, came back to finish it, and the darn website was gone. So
well, that happens too.
But
Happens too
his,
sometimes.
and so many people that have the game are incredible wrestling knowledge. I mean, we got some people that just are beyond experts on wrestling, and unfortunately, we have a lot that I know of that exchange emails, but for whatever reason, time constraints, just more private, whatever, they don't post at our forum. And, I wish they would, because the knowledge they could share and just the discussions. And that's why I truly invite any wrestling fan to come to our forum. Even if there's 1 in a million chance you're going to buy the wrestling game, just come read our stuff, join in the conversations. I know I'm biased, but I truly believe, the Delphi forums can kind of get nasty at times. I really think we have a very, very nice forum, and most any fired up things that occur are probably either me or my brother, but 99% of the time it's just very respectful. People are just, very happy to get new people there and just to discuss wrestling, and nobody's put down. And I tell people, if you're posting your match results to get, a lot of responses, some people, just don't take the time to respond. But when you post everything like Pauly does, you now have a permanent history of everything you've ever done. And so Pauly, he could go back to whenever he started playing the game. He can go way back and read everything he did, or in 5 years, he could go back to what he did last week. So, all kinds of, we have some off-topic stuff over there, but it's just mainly really, really good guys. A lot of friendships have been formed. I think I've met, is it 6 guys now who I've sold the game to? At least 5. But, I've talked to many of them on the phone, and I know some of them outside of me have become, I know a lot of them become friends, and some of them have met up. So it's a really, really fun community. We can't do it this year because my sister-in-law is living with us till she gets her house found, but we didn't do it last year of COVID, but we do a WrestleFest every year, the week after the 4th of July. It goes from Tuesday until Saturday morning, and all we do is watch wrestling. John has over 6,000 DVDs, and he takes photos of what we want to watch. So we might watch Florida. We might watch a couple shoot interviews. I think the last time we watched a 12 series set on Sergeant Slaughter. Get up about 8. We go get breakfast, and then from about 9:30 till 6, all we do is watch wrestling. We don't watch the news. We don't watch the stock market. We don't play cards. We either watch the wrestling or we play wrestling's finest. Then we get dinner, and then we come back, and probably at about 10:30 we watch more wrestling. And my wife thinks we're nuts, but it is just the greatest, Tuesday afternoon, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, all day Friday. And we just, hunker down. And our rule is, if we have at least 4 guys in attendance, and sometimes we have 5, you have to keep 2 guys in the room from the time we get up until the time we go to bed. Otherwise, our WrestleFest is a failure. So, like, if somebody wants to go for a walk and another guy has to make calls, we make sure 2 people are going to stay in there. So, but it's a lot of fun. It's Ed, Bob Jenkerson, myself.
Bob's a good guy.
Don came to one, and my brother Herman, and then the late great Mitch Galis. He came to 2 of them, and then unfortunately, about 10 days after our last WrestleFest, he passed away in Europe on a vacation. So we all have a very soft spot for Mitch, and but it's just the greatest time. It's incredible knowledge in the room. We talk some game ideas. We'll watch a guy 8 match. I got to go make some tweaks to this guy. So I'll run into my office, which is right next to it, and I'll work on it a little bit, and but just tremendous amount of fun. It's everybody stays here, and it's a good time. And we're for sure, unless something weird happens again, we'll have it in July of 2022. So we'll throw some invites out to that. So, but Pauly, again, I keep saying how much I love your wrestling world, and I really hope some people go over and read it because your
it's Grand Slam Wrestling for anybody wanting to look for it. And I put the accounts of the matches like this is my notepad that I keep all the matches. This is like from 5 weeks ago in Minneapolis. And I've been putting the match accounts into my Facebook group, and everybody's loving it over there. The Big Pauly's World of Sports Sims Facebook group. Just copying it, pasting it over there in an effort to try to bring people over to the Delphi forums one of these days, or to what I do on YouTube. I thought I would show how I do the rankings, if that'd be okay.
Please do. And real quick, Mark, she does still make it. Breakfast slop.
Okay. Oh, Steeler fan. Let me say hello to Steeler fan here. My good friend has a wrestling podcast called Lost in the Mid Card. If anybody is interested of that sort of thing. Oh, I listen to a whole bunch of wrestling podcasts. They're a lot of fun. I listen to Ron Fuller's, and I listened to John McAdams' Stick to Wrestling, and another one is Charting the Territories by Al Getz, and he has a partner that's it's an analytical look at the wrestling, and he goes through all the cards, and he makes it statistical, and I just love the hell out of that one. So I just wanted to show a sample match. From about 5 weeks ago, I did in Minneapolis. Vern Gagne and Wild Bill Lungson. So there's a 23-point difference. And my base ups and downs are if you win a match by pin or clean, 4 points. If you win partial, a technical win, it's 2. If there's a draw, bad time to get a cough. It's 2 points to each, but I make adjustments depending on where everybody is. If there's a double count out, double DQ, no contest, it's 1 point each. For instance, in this match with Bill Lungson, Gagne at this point's a 138, and Lungson's 115. And Lungson has been moving up lately in the last few weeks or so, in the last few trips around the horn. He got a draw with Vern because the match only went 30 minutes because it was like about mid-card. 23-point difference. So normally that'd be 2 points to each, but Lungson picks up 2 because it's a 23-point difference. And that gives him 4 points instead of 2. For Gagne, I don't give him any points. And you can't lose points on wins or draws, but you can gain more than the average number of points if you draw or if you win and you are underneath where your opponent is. So in that one, Wild Bill Lungson picked up 4 points. He goes to 119, but Gagne does not lose anything. And that's kind of an example of how I do it. So should I do another example or something like that, Tommy?
Sure, go ahead, because I like to hear the scoring
style here.
Now on this, I'll just do another. I did Battle of the Bullies, which I do sometimes. I'll do maybe there's about a 1 in 2 chance if 2 heels are close to each other in the rankings, I'll put them together. A 1 in 4 chance if 2 baby faces are closely together that I would put them together. And I did Bockwinkel with Heenan. This was 5-6 weeks ago against Big Van Vader. Vader's at 142 and Bockwinkel's at 130. They went to a double count out, and Bockwinkel picked up the bonus point because there was a 12-point margin. I just used the first digit of the difference, and that instead of Vader picking up a point and Bockwinkel picking up a point, Bockwinkel picked up 2. It's another example of how I do it. So there will be matches that I have done, and one guy is 40 points ahead of the other the underdog wins and they pick up a boatload of points.
Pauly, can you go back to that previous screen?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
See, I liked what he does right here where it says the big news here kind of in the middle is that the Undertaker was badly favoring his left hand. So I love how Pauly does that after every match. He just, sometimes he puts a little bit more, sometimes a little less. But I just love those little summaries he does. And it's a very, very fun wrestling world to follow. So,
thank you very much, Mark. Very clever. I pretty much think that I got the idea subconsciously from horse racing, or dog racing. There's a dog racing track not too far from me, Derby Lane. Well, actually, they went out of business about a year ago. The state of Florida said no to future dog races, but they would always have these summaries. Horse number 2 or dog number 2, the odds should be 5-1. And they would say something like, should be fast if he gets loose, or something like that. I forget how they describe it, but they would always have these short little comments on how the horses or at the dog track, the dogs fared. And I think that's kind of where I picked up the idea.
It's very, very unique. And I just think it's very, very efficient.
Yeah. Guys, if you have any last questions for Tommy, we'll go about another 15 minutes.
Al, could I respond to Al there real quick?
Yes. Let's see what I was saying.
One thing that two things come to mind. One, they couldn't do, unfortunately, because of real life, but I was not a big fan of his. I mean, I didn't dislike him. But when Magnum TA had his terrible car accident, can't remember if it was October 86 or October 87.
I think it was 86.
86. I would have loved to have seen Magnum win the title from Flair, and I would have loved to have seen the Horsemen pursue him, for several months, and then I would like to see him drop the belt back. But the one in real life, and this is just selfishly, I would have loved to have seen Piper beat Hulk Hogan on the War to Settle the Score, which I believe was February of 85.
Yes, it was.
I would have loved to have seen Piper illegally win that match, because I think the buildup between February and whenever WrestleMania was a couple months later, I just think that buildup would have been incredible. And then to have Hogan regain the belt at WrestleMania, I just think that would have been a phenomenal couple months, because first you have Piper coming out, with his arrogant self, hello, Mr. Hogan, what do I have here? And, now you got Hogan, going crazy saying, Piper, you stole that from me. And, Roddy could do his Piper Pits, and then you get to the WrestleMania. And I just think that would have been incredible. I was not a fan of the Hogan Mr. T against Piper and Orndorff, but I do understand that the reason Mr. T was brought in, Vince was trying to get, the music industry and the entertainment industry to kind of buy in and join in with this wrestling. So I understand it, but I just think it would have been awesome on MTV mid-February to have Piper illegally pin Hogan, and the place would have probably rioted.
Oh, absolutely, it would have.
So that's my answer. So I'm sure Pauly has probably a good one there.
My answer is almost the same. I would have had TA beat Flair for the title, but then there's a little bit of a rift between TA and Dusty.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Okay, TA turns actually no. My premise is this: Dusty kind of shadowing Andre turns heel late in his career, tries to win the title away from TA, and they have a series of matches. TA gets the better of Dusty, and there's this one match where TA is beating the poo out of Dusty, and they turn Flair face and try to get him to stop just laying him waste. That's how I would have done it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we were kind of on the same wavelength on all of that.
And the thing with, again, any wrestling game you could do that is if Magnum, if you wanted something like that to occur, you could give Magnum title shots. And if I want somebody to win, I'm still going to play the match right down the middle, like I do Minnesota Twins season replays. I love doing the 162. I'm coaching the Twins and whoever they're playing equally hard, pinch hitters, relief, whatever it may be. Same in wrestling, but if you put Magnum in enough opportunities to win, say, the title, that would have been awesome. Now, unfortunately, if in real life he had turned heel, then we could have the heel card. But you can do kind of like alternative. I did a project about a year ago where I had Kerry Von Erich. I started with Kerry Von Erich as the world champion. And I wanted to see, the whole project was going to be, how long could Kerry Von Erich keep the title? And
you followed Kerry around on his real life tour.
Because he went to Florida, and the project was going to end and ended when Kerry Von Erich lost the belt. It wasn't going to be rematches. It was just, so it could have been one match or it could have been 100. And sometimes with wrestling, it's not a set schedule. Like if I do a twin season, it's 162 games. If I do a Viking season, you got to start, you got an end. Wrestling doesn't have an end. And sometimes it's fun to do projects where you put a time limit or you set boundaries before you even start. Like, for example, my 6 guys in a van, I have that a start date and an end date, and then it's done.
Right.
We're not getting another van and we're not starting it up again. I might do it a couple years down the road. But the point is it's fun occasionally to do a beginning and an end. And that's why it's kind of fun to sometimes do alternative universes where what would have happened had Hulk Hogan stayed in the AWA? Could he have won the title from Bockwinkel? Or what if Hogan had turned Vince down? Who would have Vince chosen
to be Hogan?
To be the Hulk Hogan? And somebody brought up an interesting one. What about, he was very popular at the time, was Hacksaw Butch Reed.
Yes.
Could he have ran with that? Or could he have brought Nikita in? I mean, there's all kinds of different things, but what if you did that? What if you had an alternative Hulk Hogan and you said, he's going to be my champion until he loses? Then what I'm going to do is, if it's a heel that beats him, that heel's going to run until he loses the title, then I'm done. So you got to you set your parameters before you even start. So sometimes those are actually really, really fun projects to run, because when I run Georgia, it goes for eternity until I get sick of it and don't want to do it anymore.
Without a Black Sunday to kill him.
Exactly. There's
Black Saturday, I mean.
There's just, wrestling just goes on. There's no season for wrestling. And that's why I look at other people's projects where there's really no rhyme or reason. They just do random matches. And I think it's great. To be honest, when I listened to Al's the other day, I don't know what brought all those matches, because I must have missed something. I don't know what occurred to have these cage matches in the Cow Palace. Now, if I missed it, I'm sure there was a good story. But even if he said, I'm just going to make these matches, that's fun to do sometimes. What if matches. But, I've done the alternative. Sometimes I do them, but I don't post them. So, and sometimes they suck, and I'm glad I didn't post them. But sometimes they're really fun. So it's wrestling's just a very, very unique, I think, replay to do.
I was talking to Virginia Rob, for lack of a better term, I will call it Virginia Rob. And Rob just picked up the game not too long ago from you.
That's who Virginia. So when you say Virginia,
I just call him Virginia Rob.
We're talking
it's
Rob face exclamation point.
Rob, yes, exclamation point. I just call him Virginia Rob.
He's a great guy.
And
I like him.
easy for me to think of him as Virginia Rob as opposed to Rob ! So I was either on his channel or he was on mine, and I was saying another great what if scenario is, what if somebody convinces Vince McMahon in 1983, hey, don't go national. Don't go national. You don't know the gumption of all these NWA promoters you're going to eventually screw over. And what happens to the WWF if they never go national? I think that's another what if scenario. That's probably.
And what if I'll keep it small, but they had talked about what if World Class Mid-South and Mid-Atlantic had banded together and said, we're going to take Vince on and we're going to offer JYD and DiBiase and, whoever else not to jump to the WWF. Personally, I don't think it ever would have worked because I think you'd have Fritz, Crockett, and Watts. Big egos.
And Watts had the biggest of them.
Yeah, and I don't. But in a wrestling world, you could slap them around and say, guys, this is what we're going to do. And I just think you could have really, banded together. And I mean, you'd have a lot of talent with those 3 territories or 3 organizations. So, but it just it gives you all wrestling games just give you so many options. And unfortunately, I think actually, ironically, I've had people say they can't get started because they have too many wrestlers to choose from. They get overwhelmed. And it's like they say, I pick 30 guys and everyone's a superstar. And now when I start my matches, I feel like I have to have an angle for each guy.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer you got to have so many top guys, so many sort of top guys, so many middle guys. So you kind of got to have different levels. And every guy doesn't have to have a program or an angle. Some guys are just going to be fillers. So, that's just my opinion on it. And that's why I love doing Georgia because, you do have some top guys, but then you have like the Steve O's, you have the Buddy, what's Buddy, not Buddy Rose, but Buddy Landells.
Buddy Landell, yeah.
Hernandez. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're kind of my opening matches. And unless they do something shocking, I'm probably not going to have big angles with them.
Right.
But you need that because otherwise you burn out on ideas.
True. I think that's a problem with a lot of games is there's too much to choose from. And OOTP is one game that comes to mind. When you get OOTP every year, you get every season, every minor league season, every minor league player that's ever. I was telling you during our little chat before we came on at 9:00 that I was just playing some games from my MLB 1971 universe because I'm turning 50 this year. And I played a minor league game, and Cedar Rapids Cardinals have a guy named Randy Poffo who would go on and become Macho Man Randy Savage. And I used that on my open tonight for the Facebook group to kind of promote the show. So a lot of things you can do, and sometimes your worlds will collide.
Yes, and and another thing I tell gamers is don't ever be afraid to start over because I can't tell you how many projects I've started, and it's not because I didn't get time to finish them, it's because they were bad ideas. And and the whole thing is you have to do something that's fun, that makes you look forward to coming back. And I don't care if you did it for a day, a week, a month, 6 months. If it turns out not being fun, start over.
Absolutely.
There's no, and I know some people have emailed me, said I didn't want to post because my first 2 projects I started, I couldn't stick with them because they weren't fun. There's no shame in that. And, if you didn't like them, start over. You'll eventually find something that you like. And I got one guy, real good friend of mine's done some stuff behind the scenes. He just says, I keep spinning my wheels. And so what he ends up doing, he does a lot of tournaments. And I said, tournaments are great if you're having fun. Don't worry about doing other stuff if the tournaments give you fun. And that's what it's about. Enjoy the game, playing it however you want. I'm always gonna tell you, certain things, like I'm a big believer it's impossible, and to take an AEW guy versus Roddy Piper, because
different eras,
different match settings, and whichever one you choose, it's going to be so unrealistic for the other guy.
Yeah.
So if you make it a classic match and you're taking Kenny Omega from AEW, it's not going to be anything like a Kenny Omega AEW match. But if you make it an AEW match, then Piper's way out of his element. And the best thing I can explain is it'd be like having the Boston Red Sox play the Boston Bruins in a baseball game. It doesn't make sense. The Bruins, exactly my point. You can't, you just, some of those you cannot mix, because the match styles are so opposite of each other. And I know people don't like hearing that. Oh, I want to see how CM Punk would have done against Ric Flair. Well, you have to make certain match decisions before you even start what style to use. And the other guy is not going to fit the other guy's style. And as a game designer, the worst thing I want to have happen is say, this was so unrealistic. Well, yeah, because you shouldn't do it. So that, and so I'm going to share stuff with that. But the bottom line is when you get the game, it's your game.
Right.
You do whatever you want with it, run territories, make your own territories, do tournaments. I mean, and that's the thing at our forum. People have some wild, crazy, and I mean that as a compliment. They got some really cool, crazy ideas that I could never think of. And I think it's great. I'll read it and I'll go, in all my years of Wrestling's Finest, I've never seen this idea. And I just think that's really cool.
Let me say hello to Dave Little. Dave is one of the great practitioners of the Phil Singer game that we had mentioned a little earlier in the show. What is the name of it? I'm drawing a blank, Dave, because I'm almost at the end of. He has his. It's a dice-based wrestling game, and he has his own federations, and one of the names of his fed is Heartland Wrestling, and it's outstanding what he does with that. It's with the packs that you get. Dave, help me out here. See here, Legends of Wrestling. Thank you, Al Red Sox fan. It was an unintentional blank, kind of like an unintentional button in boxing. Legends of Wrestling. Yeah, that's a very, very good game on top of...
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And Legends of Wrestling. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I just drew a blank at a bad time. Mark asked, did you see the forum link out? See if I could bring that up again before we go. And I'm definitely going to put this in the comment section of this live chat that we have been doing. And let me just do a couple of things here. Share screen, go to screen one. And I'll mention there it is again. And I have this set up to how it would normally appear. I use a brightness, a chrome app called Deluminate, because when I have a white background like this is, and it's getting harder with me for my eyes to see the text. So when I see it, it looks like this. But but I will just set it up for normal so everybody can see it. It is. I'll try to do this again. Forums.delphi.com, and then there's a /m/main.asp ? Web tag equals Wrestling's Finest. I would suggest that it'd probably be a heck of a lot easier for somebody to type in Wrestling's Finest Delphi board into Google, and they could probably find it a heck of a lot easier that way. But that's on Delphi. That's not on any of us.
And please, guys, again, honestly, we just love talking wrestling there, and even if you in a million years would never buy Wrestling's Finest, feel free to stop by. We do limit the talk to Wrestling's Finest for games only because it's pretty much my sole, that and Facebook, which I'm never good at, is my sole source of advertising trying to promote the game. But a lot of our discussions aren't even on the game. It's on just wrestling in general. We talked a little bit about the current stuff, but it's just all kinds of different topics. We review, people talk about wrestling books and videos they've watched and read. But just the knowledge there is absolutely phenomenal. And the wrestling worlds, they have, I don't know, Pauly, how many do you think are there? Probably 12, 15 different various wrestling worlds there at any given time.
I think it might be a little more than that.
It's just incredible what, and then even people that run a normal project or a normal wrestling world, all of a sudden out of the blue, they want to take a break and they'll run a short-term project. And it's, my little brother loves to do, like he's doing Life on the Road as a mid-carder. It's been going on
that's a good one.
Years. It's on Jerry Stubbs' Mr. Olympia, and he's having a ball with it. He's also doing one on the Dusheks tag team with Saul Weinkauf, and it's more of a story than actually wrestling, but it kind of grabs you, and it's like I get mad at him because he goes big lapses between and he loses his momentum, but it just so many different things that we have one gentleman, Bob Jinkerson, whenever a wrestler passes away, he does a tribute card for him, which I think is a really great way to honor that wrestler, and he does a fantastic job with it. So, but yeah, please stop in, and even if you don't post, just read along the stuff going on. It's pretty cool stuff.
Just as a footnote, I will point out that in my GSW, one of the two main ways I debut people now is when they pass away. Like, for instance, New Jack just passed away, and I had him in a managerial role in one of my matches in Dallas, or they make the Wrestling Observers Hall of Fame that they do every year. So that's usually. I have other ways that they could come in. If I'm really short, like say a heel or a babyface, I might bring a tag team in, or I might bring a single in. Or at the start of the year, I'll bring in a few new people. But yes, I know a lot of people didn't like New Jack, but that's what I do with everybody. I know that's what I do with everybody is if they pass away and I don't have them in the game yet already, I put them in. So you'll see New Jack in GSW, but for how long, who knows? I wanted to get to Al's comment about the Battle Royals. You did a Battle Royal, Al? Did you stream it? You see here, yeah, the Battle Royals are fun because you don't know what's going to happen in a Battle Royal. I know a lot of people in modern day wrestling don't like the Battle Royals, but this was an attraction. This is what got people to watch wrestling, and it's good that you have it in the game.
I think Pauly's used it pretty good to like determine challengers and maybe even champions. I don't know for sure, but you use them as not just for the heck of it. You use it to actually have the winner lead to something. It's there's a purpose to doing it, and the Battle Royals are wasn't even I think it was John's idea, and then we put it in, and I didn't know how it would go over. People seem to love it, so then we did the tag team, and then Gary on his own. Gary's not a huge wrestling fan. Gary's our computer programmer, but somehow he stumbled on a Royal Rumble. I don't remember the story, and he was intrigued by it. And I didn't even know he was going to do it. He watched some Royal Rumbles, and he started to form a way to do it. And I was blown away when he, finished it. And they all can serve their purposes, and at the same time, they're just kind of fun to go do it. Not, even if it's just no purpose. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Al. And I hope I don't know if that's one you recorded, but if you did, I bet you brought excitement to the Battle Royal like never before.
How I use the battle royals, Tom, is currently I'm using it with Monarch of the Mat. And like, for instance, I try to do it all in one night so I don't have any more than 16 matches. So I take the top 15 guys, I put them in the tournament, and then I say, okay, these guys that are 16 and lower, you do the battle royal. Whoever wins, he gets the 16 seed. So
I like
that's
that.
yeah. I've used the battle royals. Like if somebody gets hurt and can't defend their titles, I just pick a whole bunch of guys from like one region and say, okay, you guys go for it. And we'll see who the next champion. And sometimes it's not a well-known name who becomes the next champion, but that's also part of the chase. As the fellow Mark Maron was saying, the Glow series on Netflix, the money is in the chase.
There you go. And a little secret on the battle royals, the ratings. Hand to God, I can't remember how they're rated for battle royals, but something ability comes in. But it's not like you'd think, oh, this guy's like got a 50% chance of winning, even if he's a strongly rated wrestler. Upsets in battle royals, as Pauly is saying, you're going to have some strange winners. And people, I had one person say, how do you determine battle royal times? And we have a system. I don't have any factual information how long they went. However, short ones don't bother me because this is a true story. I was at Sioux City, Iowa. I think I saw 2, maybe 3 battle royals in my life. Sioux City, Iowa was probably held like 3,000-4,000. And it wasn't a huge crowd. It was AWA. And one of the faces, and I can't remember if it was Steve-O or who, they were eliminated. So as they were going down the hall to the dressing room, there was only like 2 or 3 people left, and this battle royal went quick. And as he went by, whoever it was, I yelled, boy, that's an awful quick battle royal. Is it because it's only Sioux City? And he didn't really stop, and he didn't look at me. He just kept going. He goes, we got planes to catch. And so that was one of those things that my little brother and I talk about. So many things happened in real life wrestling that we're not privy to. So when I start getting, not a pity party, I don't mean that, but when I start feeling like, boy, we have too many, I had too many short matches. I don't like that. Like my little brother points out, he goes, Tom, you don't know if maybe the guy had a stomach flu. And he said, we're going to go out there. We're going to go 6 minutes. You win by count out. And then when we come back in a month, we can have a rematch. But I'm feeling terrible. Or maybe somebody has a sick child at home. They want to get that match done quick. So you don't know for sure how long matches actually went. And if you look at some shows, they would start at 8:30 because when it started late, was it allowed in the old days, it would allow people to get in from the fields in smaller rural towns. They'd get all their work done. They get cleaned up, have supper, and then get to and the card would start at 8:30. They would be out no later than 10:45. So you're talking 2 hours and 15 minutes for 6 matches plus an intermission. So if you start doing the math, and if it's, say, 5 to 10 minutes between matches, you're looking at maybe one match that was like 20, 25 minutes maybe, but all your other ones are going to be anywhere from like 7 to 12.
Yeah.
And, that's why whenever I go off on my match times, my little brother always snaps me back and says, Tom, maybe the roads were bad. Maybe there was a storm coming in. Maybe they were mad at the promoter for the payoff last time. We don't know all that. And so battle royals, sometimes I'll look and I go, wow, that wasn't a very long battle royal. And what I say is, oh, maybe they had a plane to catch.
But WrestleMania, I think it was the year they had it at the Astrodome, and it was Rock and Austin at the main event. They had a gimmick battle royal. I think there was like 20 some odd people in it, and it only lasted 5 minutes. So
and that's
something that could happen.
That's a great point. And so unless you know 100% for fact, I don't know anywhere to find what the average battle royal time is. I wouldn't even know where. I think because Gary was asking me, how long do we make these? And I go, let me look. I spent maybe an hour and I couldn't find one thing that helped us. So I think we just kind of made up a timing system in hopes that it would, accurately, time the battle royals. But I'm glad everybody enjoys them. I really am.
Al asks a very, very good question here. Have you ever thought of adding handicap matches like 4 guys against Andre the Giant?
The problem we can't do is we can only have 2 guys in a tag team the way it's set up, and we can't ever have more than 1 guy versus 1 guy at a time because the game engine is predicated by 1 wrestler being in control. And so if you had 4 guys in the ring, if you mean that versus Andre, there's no way we could replicate that type of match because it always has to be 1-on-1, and we can't rate like a 4-man tag team. So unfortunately, we can't. What if the only thing you really can do with Andre is set him up against a prelim guy, then take him against another have him face like 3 prelim guys in a row or 4.
Kind of do what Foreman did in Toronto, fighting 5 fighters, but in turn.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Al, that is one of the limitations of this game engine. Just like, I don't know if you were on earlier when I said you can't have what's kind of popular sometimes are those 3-way and 4-way matches. They won't work because it's a control battle between wrestler A and wrestler B. So we just can't do them. But and I do understand they were used. We just, one thing to keep in mind is when this game was created, all we had to go on were wrestling magazines and wrestling shows, and they didn't tell you a lot. I don't honestly know what different things we could have done, knowing what we know now about, what from all, I've seen a ton of 8mm handheld videos of Mid-Atlantic where guys you wouldn't think get pinned clean in the ring. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. Because back in the day, if Pauly and I went to a show in Roanoke, Virginia, we more than likely weren't going to go to the show the next night in Huntington, and we wouldn't know what happened in Huntington unless we had friends that went there and called us. But now with the internet, everybody knows everything. And wrestling, I don't want to say it was ruined for me, but my telltale time was watched it, grew up in South Dakota, watched the Sioux City, Iowa AWA show, and Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell came out, and Greg came out and said, Gene, pleasure to be here this Friday night in Sioux City. Jumping Jim and myself, we're going to be taking on the East-West Connection, and golly, Jim, we're going to have a tough fight at our hands, but I have to say Sioux City is our favorite town to come to. Wouldn't you agree, Jim? Gee, Greg, I couldn't have said it better myself. And Jesse and Adrian, when we get a hold of you, you're going to be ours. Fast forward a week, go to my grandparents up in northern Minnesota, big card in Duluth. Gene Oakland, Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, come on in. Greg, Duluth, High Flyers against East-West. Gosh, Gene, it's going to be a heck of a match, but I can honestly say, and I think I can speak for Jim, that Duluth is our absolute favorite place to go. I'm great fans. We love it. It's our number 1 place. Right, Jim? Gee, Greg, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, that was the exact same interview on the East-West, the same thing. My dad looks at me and goes, you damn fool. They do the same show everywhere they go. Of course, every place they go is their favorite.
Exactly.
And I go, no. He goes, if you go watch it somewhere else and they're going to Brainerd, Minnesota, Brainerd's going to be their favorite town. And it just, talk about my dad raining on my parade. So wrestling's just that different animal. There's so much that went on behind the scenes that when this game was created, I mean, we rated kind of the fictional Andre the Giant. I didn't think he was ever body slammed, let alone pinned. Well, as time goes on, Andre was slammed by Harley Race. He was slammed by Pauly. No, so certain things have came to our attention, and we try to account for them. But so I don't know what decisions would have made differently 40 years ago. Maybe we would have done the Andre handicap match, but I didn't know he did those back then. So
did a few. Of course, he always did them on WWF television. Like he would always have 1 against 2, 1 against 3 everywhere he went. Georgia, there I saw footage of Georgia. They had Andre in, and it was 1 against 3 or 2 against 3, something like that. To your end, I went. My first wrestling card I went was at the Sundome in Tampa, Florida. It was Hogan and Bossman in the cage. I went with a couple of my mother's friends who worked with my mom because I was getting this gift because I had good grades in senior year of my high school. My friends tell me a few days later that they saw a clipping of the card in Fort Lauderdale that they ran the following night, like the one at the Sundome in Tampa, which is now where they do the tapings for the match. It's now called the Youngling Center. They had a clipping of a card from the Fort Lauderdale paper, I think, which was the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel. It was the same exact card. I don't know if all the matches went the same way, but we were just looking at each other like, you know.
And that's like somebody said here, I think it was Dave, probably the same exact match.
Yeah, to Dave's end, he's probably absolutely correct.
It's, like I said, you some stuff, like I didn't know the After magazines were all made up articles till, several years ago, but I used to devour every word in those. And, then maybe 15 years ago or so, I found out that they only had like 2 writers for it. And they'd call the promoters and say, who do you want us to push heavy? And they'd say, well, we're going to make so-and-so a big push for him. So write something glorious about him. And it's like, so all that stuff is kind of ruined. Just like I was shattered when I watched a shoot interview with Bill Eadie, the Masked Superstar, with his mask on. And at the end, he took his mask off.
Yeah.
I didn't like that because I didn't know what Bill Eadie looked like. And so my Masked Superstar was shattered.
I get you on that. Al Red Sox fan, Stan Hansen match with Andre in Japan was awesome. Yes, it was. Was that was that match in '80 where Stan slams him, I think. And yeah, they had a very good match. And Andre worked heel. Andre did not work heel to North America until about 87, right before WrestleMania 3. I always loved watching Andre as a heel because I think he was more over as a heel, but over here, you never saw it. And let's see what else we got here. I want to get to Dave's comment here. Iron Sheik won because they were too afraid to dump him out of the ring because he was older and decrepit. Yeah, well, yeah, Sheik had been around a while, up to the point he won the title. I think he started in the early 70s, and by the time the WWF gave him the belt, it was 1983, almost 1984. It was like between Christmas and New Year's of 84. One of my favorite shoot interviews is Dan Spivey. Oh, yes. We talked about this before, Al, a couple of ways. Yeah, the fight he had with Adonis, the fight he had with Adrian Adonis. I just saw that match, Maple Leaf Gardens, between Adrian and Spivey. And, yeah, I don't say it looked kind of suspicious. You wouldn't think watching it that there was a fight about to happen, but yeah. Yeah, I've seen that too. Tommy, I think we have reached the end of the rainbow, my friend. We went a little over the length that we were supposed to go, but we had some good chatters coming in, and I wanted to give them a shot at it. Any final thoughts? Any final promotion you want to give?
No, I appreciate everybody joining in, and I had a lot of fun. Pauly, you did a great job, and thanks for listening to some of my ramblings about the game, and appreciate everyone.
Alrighty, guys, and with that, we'll wrap it up. I don't know what we're going to do next week on the Meet with Big Pauly. We're talking a few ideas out, and worst comes to worst, I'll just go solo and talk to you guys. So you've watched the 3rd episode of the Meet with Big Pauly with Tom Vogel of Wrestling's Finest. I wish you all a very good evening, what's left of it, here, at least here on the East Coast. Godspeed and God bless, and we'll do it all again soon. And bye-bye for now, everybody.